This first story took place back in 2021 during my freshman year of college in West Virginia. Because of the pandemic, most students didn't even live in the dorms anymore. They chose apartments nearby or commuted from home. I wasn't so lucky. I didn't have the money for an apartment, so I stayed in the campus dorms. It wasn't glamorous, but it was my only option. On my first day, I met my new roommate. The school had given her my number, so we talked a little over text beforehand. She came across polite, but when I met her in person, something about her energy felt off. She wasn't unfriendly, just cold. She had this privileged kind of attitude, as if she didn't like sharing her space. I remember her saying, everyone had their own rooms last semester. It was way better until you showed up. That made me uncomfortable, but I shrugged it off. During the week, she was barely around. Most nights, she stayed with her boyfriend. I thought that worked in my favor, until Friday rolled around. That first weekend, I packed my bag and went home like I always did. On Monday morning, I came back early, around 6. My first class wasn't until 10, so I collapsed into my bed, hoping to catch a couple hours of sleep. And that's when it happened. About 10 minutes after lying down, I felt the edge of my mattress dip, as if someone had pressed down against it. I froze, too tired to react, telling myself I imagined it. Then, the weight lifted, like whoever it was had leaned back. My heart pounded. I turned slowly. My roommate was in her bed, facing the wall, motionless. I told myself it had to be nothing, just exhaustion. But the next week proved me wrong. Again, Monday morning, again, I laid down to rest. This time, the mattress didn't just dip on the edge. It sagged deep on one entire side, the way it would if someone actually sat beside me. My body stiffened. I didn't move. And then, a thud. Whoever it was jumped off. My bed was high. You needed a step stool to climb onto it. I heard that weight hit the ground, heavy. I finally turned. My roommate, still lying there, still facing the wall. I wanted to believe I was hallucinating, that maybe I was overtired. But then came the third time. That Monday, I crawled into bed like usual. Within minutes, the mattress sank. Someone sat right next to me again. This time, I wasn't just imagining it. I could feel it. And then, a cold hand brushed against the back of my neck and stayed there. I nearly stopped breathing. I didn't dare move, didn't dare open my eyes. The hand never squeezed. It just rested, testing, feeling how close it could get. Minutes dragged into what felt like hours before the weight lifted. I turned slowly. My roommate was still lying on her side, pretending to sleep. That was the last straw. I grabbed my things, left the room, and called my mom, sobbing. The school let me transfer to another dorm. I never saw her again, except one last time when I returned for my books. She asked me where my new room was. She pressed for details: what hall, what floor, near what stairwell. I lied over and over. To this day, I don't know if she was sleepwalking or testing how far she could go before I woke up. But sometimes I wonder if that morning when she touched my neck, she was seconds away from doing something much worse. The next story happened to me in my final year of university. I'd been struggling through a brutal statistics class and had to spend late nights in the business building to finish projects. The building was nearly deserted at night. Just me, the faint buzz of fluorescent lights, and the silence that night. I sat in the second floor computer lab, determined to finish. Everything was fine until around 11:30 when I heard a door slam. Somewhere deep inside the building, I froze. The janitors had already been through. By that hour, they were long gone. Still, I tried to ignore it. But then, footsteps, slow, heavy, echoing down the hallway, outside the lab. Whoever it was, they weren't in a hurry. They wanted to be heard. I sat perfectly still, staring at my screen, hoping they would just pass by. Instead, the steps stopped right outside the lab door, and then the handle rattled. Not a casual jiggle, a deliberate, forceful shake, like someone trying to get inside. My stomach dropped. The doors automatically locked after a certain time, which meant whoever this was didn't belong here. They rattled that handle for 30 long seconds, and then silence. The footsteps faded away. I tried to convince myself it was a prank. I forced myself to keep typing, but minutes later came another sound. Not from the hallway. From above, the ceiling tiles shifted. Dust fell, and then I heard it. Slow, deliberate movement. Someone crawling in the crawl space above me. I looked up, terrified, and saw one of the tiles sag. Just enough to know there was weight pressing on it. I'd had enough. I ripped out my flash drive, shoved everything into my bag, and bolted. The stairwell door slammed behind me. I started down the stairs, but when I glanced up, my blood ran cold. On the landing above, a man stood in the shadows. He wasn't a student. His clothes were baggy, dirty. His mouth hung open in a twisted grin, and he didn't move. He just stared down at me. I ran faster than I ever have in my life, bursting through the front entrance, sprinting across campus, not daring to look back. The next morning, I returned to turn in my project. The lab looked normal until I noticed 2 ceiling tiles were missing. The one above where I had been sitting, and another near the corner. Someone had been watching me from above, waiting for me to let my guard down. The last story comes from a girl named Annabelle in the UK. She was 16 when it happened. Her school required students and staff to wear ID lanyards. These IDs opened almost every door in the building. Teachers warned students never to let strangers inside. One afternoon, Annabelle excused herself from class to use the restroom. On her way back, she passed through the empty cafeteria. That's where she saw him, a man, sitting alone at one of the tables. He looked too old to be a student, so Annabelle assumed he was a teacher. He even had a lanyard, though the ID card was flipped backwards. "Hey," he said softly, startling her. Then he smiled and asked, "Can you help me carry some work stuff from my car?" Annabelle, shy and trusting, agreed. They walked in silence, exiting the building toward the parking lot. She noticed how nervous he seemed, fidgeting with his hands, avoiding eye contact. But she kept going. When they reached the car lot, he pointed to a blue vehicle at the end. Through the window, Annabelle saw movement, shadows in the back seat, and then it hit her. There were two men hiding inside. Before she could react, one of the doors swung open and another man started climbing out. The first man grabbed Annabelle's arm. Adrenaline kicked in. She tore free, sprinting back toward the school with everything she had. Heavy footsteps pounded behind her. But when she reached the glass entrance doors, they stopped chasing. Maybe the risk of being seen was too high. Inside, Annabelle collapsed in tears at the school cafe. Staff called her parents and the police. Security footage confirmed everything. The man had stolen a student's dropped ID card. That's how he got inside. He wasn't a teacher. He wasn't supposed to be there. And what those men had planned. No one wants to imagine. Annabelle survived. But the memory still haunts her to this day. Some people think college horror stories are exaggerated. But the truth is, you never really know who's sharing your dorm, who's roaming your campus at night, or who's waiting just beyond those school doors. And sometimes, you don't want to find out.